Welcome to the Mother Blanken Show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports, coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the number one network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the number one sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners and Latin America, also across the pond, and London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys in Canada. We love you in Africa, the Big C tribe, but there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south in the land of the free and the home of the brave. On a beautiful June the 30th, 2020, Founder Deportes, Big C is still dealing with the leftovers that he ate at the POTUS rally down in Tulsa, Oklahoma. He also went to Juneteenth. Sometimes you get a little bit of, you never know what they put in your system. My grandmother always said, don't let them get it in your stomach, baby. It's all fair, love, and war. I want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you, as well as a fleet of Cadillac cars. Also, all around the world, just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear Welcome to the Show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing from 3,000 miles away, and I really appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Roku TV, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. But you better have a smart TV, Big C, or you'll be looking at a still picture. Really appreciate a lot of things. Also coming to Spotify very soon is the Big C Sports Show. Really look forward to that happening also. I want to make sure that we pay homage to our Veterans Crisis Hotline. They are experienced in helping veterans and their loved ones get help. 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255 and get some help. If you're online, simply go to veteranscrisisline.net. That's veteranscrisisline.net, and you can get some help. Also, very happy to be affiliated with Valley Homes Weekly TV on Dish TV, DirecTV, AT&T, Uverse, TV 53, home of the San Francisco Giants. And when you reach out to them, just let them know that Big C sent you. Our goal is simple: recruit 100 real estate brokers, put their property listings on TV, just like fast food companies do it, car dealerships do it, and sports teams are trying to do it too, Big C. If they can just get out of the bubble or maybe get inside of the bubble, watch TV and real estate work for you. 800-772-8624. That's 800-772-8624. If you're looking for opportunities in real estate, go to bigcsports.pacwm.com. That's bigcsports.pacwm.com, and you can get opportunities there as well. Really looking forward to a lot of good things coming in the world of Big C Sports. Also, we are expanding into another TV market coming up later this fall for the real estate segment of Big C, the Big C team. Really looking forward to that. I'm taking the pause, Big C, because it's great to take a pause every now and then. Just like it's great to take a shower every now and then. Maybe a shower is better. Maybe a shower is better for every day. But I got some friends, man, in college. I remember I had some roommates in college. I'm not going to say one of his name, but he hated taking a shower. Even worse than taking a shower, Big C, he hated cleaning the shower. You know how bad it is? I'm a germaphobe as it is. But he would take a shower. He would always leave that ring of dirt around the shower. Usually you got a ring of dirt around the bath, but he had the ring of dirt around the shower, Big C. And so we would always have him, hey man, can you clean the shower after you're done? And he would say, why? It's just a shower. So Big C, just like everything else, I still remember he would get mad because we asked him to clean up after himself, but it's all fair and love and war. And he actually had to find another place to go. I really want to touch on what's going on in life. Just like my friend in college, he would also eat and leave a plate of chicken bones on the end of the sofa on a table. We had a table by the end of the sofa. We had two sofas. One was a pull-out bed. I never forget. We had like 7 roommates in college, Big C. You know how it is when you're in college. You just do what you got to do. And he would always eat, and then he would leave a plate of food on the side of the sofa on a table for like an hour or two. And we would have to say, I almost said his name, Big C. I almost said his name. We would say, man, could you at least dump your food in the trash when you're done? He said, yeah, I'll get around to it. There's a reason he only lasted about a month as a roommate, Big C. He would say, yeah, I'll get around to it. And he was always talking about Black Power and Black Lives Matter. It wasn't Black Lives Matter then, it was Black Power. But he didn't want to clean up after himself. He didn't want to clean the shower. And he didn't want to take chicken bones and put them in the trash after he was done eating. I still remember one more thing on him. I remember my mother always would send me food, and my favorite dessert was a German chocolate cake. And with all the frosting and the coconut and the 3 layers, she would have 3 layers of it, and they would have the caramel frosting with the coconut and the walnuts on all 3 layers. Well, one time she sent it to me, and I was just waiting for it to get in through the mail. And so I come back from class one day, and he said, "Hey, Curry, hey, I opened your box and put the cake in the refrigerator." And I said, "Why did you open my box?" He said, "Because I just wanted to make sure that if your mama sent you some food, that I'd put it in the refrigerator." I said, "I didn't tell you to go through my mail, Big C." He was always scrounging for something. You ever have a roommate like that? He went through everything, but we got rid of him after about a month. But I just remember how good that German chocolate cake was, and he would only take a shower like every other day, and he would never want to clean after himself. It reminds me, people say, why you start a sports show talking about German chocolate cake and a roommate that would not clean after himself or take a shower? Well, it's just like what's going on in our country right now. There's a lot of times people, they want to eat, but they don't want to clean up after themselves. They don't want to take a shower, but they want to go out and get funky, if that makes sense to you. Oh man, I had a great time in college, but I still remember there are times we have to have some great conversations and debates, and it goes into what's happening right now. Black Lives Matter. He called it the Black Power movement back in the day, but it's about doing the right thing, no matter what color you are, and not going through somebody's mail and trying to make sure you find out what somebody has in the mail. It's illegal, number one, to do that. And number two, just don't do it. But he was always the sneaky kind of guy. You know, he was always sneaky, always trying to sneak into other people's things. But it's just like Black Lives Matter. There are times we gotta clean up what we messed up. I think as our society, as a metaphor, our society has messed up a few things. We've gotten a few things dirty, whether it's relationships, and whether it's dealing with race or the economy, or even in religion, in the voting, whatever it is. I remember even that same place that I had stayed at that time in college, I was given the chance to meet some roommates through a lady on the campus and helping African Americans, find a place to live. And I'll never forget her name. I'm going to say her name was May Callahan. She did a really good job helping a lot of students finding housing. So she put me on a list with some other African American students, and we even had a Caucasian roommate there as well. So we were trying to be as faceted as possible, diverse as possible. And I'll never forget how great a job May Callahan was. I also got a job working in media in campus. I was the only African American in the media department on campus. And I'll never forget, my boss was an African American by the name of Bill Seamster. Never forget Bill. He was an amazing mentor and taught me a lot about doing the sound systems at the university. And so I remember those great things, those great days back in the day, and I really appreciate it. But I wish my roommate would have taken more showers, Big C, and stopped opening my mail whenever I got a package to come. I think anyone can understand a roommate like that's not the best. But just like Black Lives Matter, we cleaned it up. We had honest dialogue. He came to see things our way, myself and some other roommates. He was going through everybody's stuff. And he was black. He's called the Black Power movement. He'd go through our mail, Big C. It didn't make any sense. And I realized, I knew it a long time ago, it's not about the color of a person, it's about the color of their heart. And just like with the Black Lives Matter, last week the ESPYs had athletes Malcolm Jenkins and put together great video testimonies. Lindsey Vonn, Steve Kerr, Russell Wilson, many others shared Big C sports message on equality. It's ironic, I just had an epiphany. I remember as a reporter on the campus news station, and I was a reporter. I did news and also sports and weather, and produced, did a lot of that stuff. Even went to a radio station and I had an internship there. Rush Limbaugh was actually just leaving that station when I got there. And so I remember that. And now doing the Big C Sports podcast, it's amazing how it seems like it was yesterday. It seems like it was yesterday, Big C. And I remember some of my friends on campus, they were part of the Pan-African movement. And the year before I'd gotten there, they had a sit-in on campus because there were complaints that some of the African-American students were not being treated fairly on campus. And just conversations I remember having right now. And so we all sat down to break bread with administrators on how to make things better. And I think over time it did work. But I was oftentimes reporting on that even while I was back in college. And here we are now doing Black Lives Matter. But we all are looking for liberty and justice for all. Just don't want my old roommate going through my stuff anymore, Big C. I also want to say that. And again, if anyone noticed, I did open the show. Welcome to the Mother Blanket Show. I should say Mother Loving Show. That's homage to him. There's a podcaster, Joe Rogan, that signed a $100 million contract with Spotify coming up in September. I wish everybody the best, but at the same time, I want the $100 million too, Big Z. I'm not fronting about that at all. I would love to have that $100 million. Podcast is amazing. And there's a story that came out in the Washington Post on May 27, 2020. People can read about that too. I want to touch on something that I heard, and I really think it's so important because to me, I've always liked Michael Moore. And of course, I've always liked Dr. Cornel West. They had a program on, and it's a podcast by Teresa Rose, Cornel West. They explore African-American arts, culture, history, and politics. And they had Michael Moore on, who's a Caucasian gentleman. And it's called The Tightrope. I don't mind paying homage to some of our other scholars and people who are working to make to form a more perfect union. So I really appreciate that. And this podcast, it talked about the Center for the Study of Race and Ethnicity in America at Brown University, and Cornel West, a prominent political activist and author and philosophy professor at Harvard University. I love following him. I read his book, Race Matters. I've read a lot of Cornel West, listened to a lot of his lectures, whether it's on television or on the internet. So really appreciate what he's talked about. But there is something that Michael Moore, who wrote a book called White Skin Privilege, he's written several articles too, and he talked about some of the things that are going on that we all need to pay attention to. The main thing is being able to listen to the other person's point of view and asking how we can help African Americans move forward while holding on to the principles. Because it's amazing, we're only asking for equality and justice and not revenge when you think about some of the things that have happened in the African American society. So I love listening to other people and getting their views on things that happen, whether it's from sports to politics to even roommates that won't shower and eat food and won't clean up after themselves. And he happened to be the same color as me, Big C. Had the same color skin, but not the same color spirit. It's all fair, love, and war. But I really appreciate when they bring on athletes also, from Isaiah Thomas and some other athletes that they'll have on their program. I don't mind mentioning what people are doing, because at the same time, we all need to find a way to just spread the message of equality, and it happens in sports as well as happening in news and politics. I really appreciate Dr. Cornel West, Michael Moore doing that thing. I also want to mention, I know a lot of people are really hyped about the NBA going into the bubble in Orlando, Florida. And there's talk that Adam Silver, obviously the commissioner of the NBA, he had an appearance on a program, and he mentioned, as people, it's so funny. He mentioned that he can go in and out of the bubble, but athletes are going to be stuck inside of that bubble. Today, NBA basketball news. New Orleans Pelicans players test positive for COVID-19. NBA Commissioner Adam Silver says that he will be allowed inside and outside of the bubble that they're going to put together for athletes. And he says he needs to be able to come and go, and they have safety protocols. Now, if they have a good result with the bubble and people don't get sick, then great. That's great news for everybody. But if people get more infections, then that's a problem also. So the New Orleans Pelicans plan to land in Orlando for the NBA season in a quarantine campus in about a week and a half. Yet the Pelicans Vice President of Basketball Operations, David Griffin, He told his players on Monday that they should adopt their routine as if they are already in the bubble, and that they need to go from the gym to the house and make sure that they're eating well and carrying themselves well as if they're already there. Griffin said on today on a conference call that he thinks the players that are committed enough to do so, that they should do it now. And he also admitted that is to be determined on whether all of his players and Coach Alvin Gentry will be part of the Pelicans' resumed season that begins supposedly around July 30th against the Utah Jazz. Now, if you are a commissioner and you're able to come and go, I just said yesterday how a good friend of mine, she had her daughter come home. She was out of state, came home for Father's Day weekend, and they were doing social distancing, wearing the mask, etc., washing their hands. But I guess they were passing around cell phones for the chance to look at different pictures. Who hasn't done that at some time? Hey, look at this picture that I took of whoever, right? And that's the only thing she can think of other than just being in contact. Well, she, her husband, and her daughter tested positive for COVID-19, plus another friend that the daughter was spending time with tested positive for COVID-19. And so if Adam Silver is going to go inside and outside of a bubble, or is he going to be driven? He's not going to drive himself around. I'm sure he's going to have a chauffeur. So is the chauffeur going to be in a confined environment too? Because that chauffeur could have had a libation, could have shared cell phones or whatever. He could have been like my roommate and doesn't want to shower or wash his hands after he does things. And some people are like that. Some people, I've been to in the public restroom, men will do their business and walk right out of the stall and go right out to shaking hands with people, Big Z. I don't know what they're doing, but I know they come out of the stall. Whether they were standing up or sitting down, they still need to wash their hands. Wash your nasty hands. As my mom always said, wash your nasty hands. And some people don't do that. So when Silva gets around in his limousine, if he gets around guys like my old roommate from college, who knows if he would have caught COVID-19, but he never really liked to clean himself, so he may have built up resistance to everything. One of my ex-roommates in college. But I just hope that Gentry, he's 65 years old, and he said no reason to think that he would not be able to go. We know that a lot of the spread is on, I guess, throughout most of the country, they were saying. It could have been all the protests that people have had over the last month. It could be that people have opened up states and people are going out to restaurants and having libations, going to dinners and going to the beaches and not wearing a mask, not practicing social distancing. On my walk this morning, I always keep a mask, and I wear it when I come up on a cluster of people. If I'm out in the open, I don't wear a mask for them. My doctor said that should be fine. But when I'm out, I always have it with me, especially in grocery stores or gas stations, etc. So I make sure that I do my part with that. But Gentry is 65, and I'm sure when he's going to be in that environment, just assuming, I might be ignorant. I was told when you assume you make an ASS of yourself, Big C, so I've done that many times in my life. I've done that many, many times, making an ASS of myself. But at the same time, you just want to make sure that you're keeping people safe. And I know my friend from the Bay Area, and she talked about her family. All of them got infected, Big C. It's amazing. But I hope that the Pelicans will do their part. But keep in mind, Adam Silver's going in and outside of that bubble. So when he goes back into that bubble, sometimes they can test and show negative, and then they'll be positive a day or two later. And who knows if he's going to bring something into that bubble. I don't know. Everybody has their own thoughts about how things are going to happen in the world of NBA basketball. I know they really want to play. It's just we got to pay attention to what's going on in the world and make sure that we're all doing our best. NBA basketball, Denver Nuggets, Rocky Mountain High, Colorado, the great John Denver. So, sang that song, Rocky Mountain High. And, of course, Colorado's high for a lot of other reasons, too, Big Z. They passed laws. I told you the Constitution can change. The amendments, Big Z, you can vote to have things changed. And they've changed some things in Colorado. It makes it a little bit smoky in the air. But Denver Nuggets basketball, a little bit smoky there, too. They closed their facilities. But it wasn't because of smoke, Big C. The Denver Nuggets, they closed their facility because of COVID-19. I should have done a drum roll. Why did they close the facility? COVID-19. because of COVID-19, the Denver Nuggets closed their practice facility starting Saturday after a round of positive tests for the coronavirus. And the Nuggets had 2 members of the team's 35-person Orlando traveling party, which encompasses players, coaches, and staff. Think about that, guys. I'm not saying that people are not going to go forward. I think people are going to go forward anyway. We are the land of the free, the home of the brave. But there are people getting sick, and they don't have to. But sometimes we put money over health. But when you think about this, they had Denver All-NBA center Jokovic. He tested positive for the coronavirus. He was in Serbia. So it's not just in the United States. I mean, it's all over the world. We know that. There's been 500,000 fatalities, unfortunately, in about the last 7 months. But he was asymptomatic. The Nuggets will reopen their facility based on the results of ongoing testing. Players are allowed to undergo controlled, socially distanced workouts with coaches in the facility until the team leaves for Orlando on July 7th. My friend in the Bay Area had a daughter fly in town, Father's Day weekend, and they were doing this, what they call socially distancing, supposedly, just from her own words. But now her husband, and her daughter, and a friend tested positive COVID-19. And I know NBA players, they're going to be sweating on each other. They were not doing any fast breaks as far as I know. They were not playing man-to-man defense. They were not doing the zone or the trap. They weren't slam dunking the basketball, trying to block a shot. They were just passing around a cell phone. That's what they recall. That's what she says they recall doing. So I don't know what's going to happen with that. Nuggets coach, the Michael Malone, he obviously has hopes on a team that's going to compete. But compete for what? He disclosed that he tested positive for coronavirus during the league's hiatus. The coach tested positive for COVID-19. And Alvin Gentry says he's going to go down there, and he's older than Coach Malone. The Nets practice facility reopened today after being closed for several days. Nets players DeAndre Jordan, Spencer Dinwiddie recently tested positive for COVID-19. And Jordan, they opted out of next month's restart of the NBA. It's amazing that guys are starting to read, and if they can, they are starting to opt out. And it's amazing because we all have a choice in this life to do whatever we feel is best for ourselves and our families. But you have Denver Nuggets facility closing, people that are playing for the Brooklyn Nets testing positive for COVID-19, and then players and coaches are deciding that they're going to head down to Florida, where it's spiking as much as anywhere else in the country, so they can play basketball. So I guess they're going to open the NBA the way Joe Rogan opened his show. Welcome to the Mother Blanket NBA show, Big C. It's all fair, love, and war. But I hope that everyone can just keep in mind that it's been happening so much. I don't know how many people would say go into a burning house unless you're a fireman. I remember this story that I was told by a neighbor, and a lot of people probably heard it. There was a person that was waiting on God for something, and the floods were coming, the thundering and the floods and the rain. So the floods were coming, and somebody came by in a fire truck and said, "Hey, you want to get on board because the flood's coming?" He said, "No, I'm going to wait on God." So the floods got a little higher. The man goes onto the top of his house as it's still thundering and lightning and raining. And so a helicopter to rescue comes in and says, "Come on, grab onto the rope. We can rescue you. It's flooding." And he says, "No, I'm going to wait on God." And the story goes, as you probably heard, so the man ended up drowning as the water and the storms and the rain, and it flooded, and he drowned. That's just the story that was told. And he get to heaven and said, "God, why'd you forsake me? I was praying, I was waiting on you, I was calling out for your help, Lord. Why'd you forsake me?" He said, "Well, I sent you an ambulance, I sent you a fire department, I sent you a helicopter, and you still didn't listen." And I think with COVID-19 spiking, there are people who believe that they can get it and they'll be okay through it. That's the only reasoning I can think about, because I can only share my own story. I think I'm in good health. In fact, based on my doctor, I know I'm in great health, but based on how healthy I was when I was 25, I was in much better shape when I was 25. I was working out with my son last night, on the bench press and doing curls and doing other things to keep ourselves physically fit. And I realized I was a lot stronger when I was younger. I could bench press 405 pounds. Now I'm lucky if I could push 300. At the same time, I don't need to bench 405 pounds now, but I could when I was in college. And at the same time, there are people right now who are young and healthy that may feel that they're invincible, like I felt when I was younger. And that may be the only thing that keeps people, as my doctor says, why would guys who have between $5 million and $100 million in the bank not want to wait just one season, Big C, one season, and wait for 2021 where they may have a cure or a vaccine that can treat it. They have medications that can treat almost everything now. And he was even asking me, what is it about the young athletes that feel like they have all the money in the world, they couldn't spend it if they had to live 10 lifetimes, but they decide that they're going to go out and they're going to play sports anyway? And I told him I don't know the answer to that. Everybody has their own choice, and everyone will make their own decision. But if you have a family, your family also depends on you being healthy and safe, and that's the real truth. I want to mention something. I talked about it yesterday. Former San Francisco Giants baseball player Aubrey Huff, he had made some comments that for people who are dealing with COVID-19 and they're going to decide to wear a mask like POTUS is saying, that's their problem, to stick their mask up where the sun doesn't shine, Big C. That's what Aubrey Huff, former baseball player for the San Francisco Giants and other teams too. I think he went to the University of Miami. But this is the same Aubrey Huff that said that he was suffering from some type of drugs that were illegal as he's playing baseball. And he said that he's dealing with depression and other issues too. But I want to ask Aubrey Huff, that's dealing with depression and got drugs from his medical doctor. He listened to his doctor when he was told what he could take. Or however he got the illegal substances that were illegal for baseball and knew how to hide that. I talked about that yesterday on the show. He got it from medical. And so the same medical people are saying if you have a high risk, if you're in a high risk category, that you want to pull back from that. And Aubrey Huff says that he would rather die, which affects he and his wife and other people around him, than to wear a mask, as intelligent people and doctors say. But when he's going through his drug rehab or his drug overdose or whatever he's addicted to, his addiction, he never spent any time in prison for it, for illegal substances, like the Black Lives Matter movement that he hates. A lot of those black kids, when they were bragging about being addicted to drugs and then playing baseball anyway, see, as a white man, he could brag about that, how he's a drug addict and he's addicted to drugs and he thought about suicide, and the pharmacy or whatever medical doctor gave him drugs anyway. He didn't talk about being arrested. He didn't talk about going to prison. He didn't talk about being put in a chokehold. But he did talk about one of the parades that the San Francisco Giants had after winning the World Series, that he was so high on the bus that they drove around San Francisco. And he even said, if you could see a picture of it, he was kind of slumped over behind the bus as they were on top of the bus being paraded around the city of San Francisco, and people were cheering and saying, congratulations, we are the champions, etc. Well, here's a Caucasian guy that says he was high as a kite in public. And he bragged about it, how high he was, how stoned he was, but there was no one socially profiling him, racially profiling him, to put him in handcuffs or a headlock or beat him over the head with a billy club or tase him or shoot him. But he's bragging about how he did drugs at such a level, he said he was high for every game. And now, why wouldn't the San Francisco Giants know that? And I know we do stuff with the San Francisco Giants, but why wouldn't the Giants know this? They got a player that's high and bragging about being high every game, a white guy. But they threw Barry Bonds under the bus with all the investigations. Here's a white guy that bragged about being high for every game on some type of drug that slows everything down and lets you see things that makes the game come to you easier. He said he did it for the whole season, but he's white. He never talked about being racially profiled. He never talked about being arrested. He never talked about being followed home by law enforcement. He never talked about being put in a chokehold. Never talked about even being questioned by law enforcement. But he brags that he was high on every game for the Giants, and he says he doesn't believe in Black Lives Matter. No wonder he doesn't know that he's too high. He's probably high now, Big C. We'll take the Big C timeout, also known as the Big C pause. When we come back, we're going to talk more about what's going on with COVID-19 in the world of baseball when we come back to the Mother Blanket Show. We'll be back in just a moment. All right, we're back to the show, back from the Big C pause, also known as the Big C timeout. Welcome to the Mother Blanket Show, Big C. I love saying that. It makes me feel so powerful. It's so provocative, Big C. It makes me feel provocative. It's all fair, love, and war. I'm sure my mother doesn't appreciate that. She said, "What is this? Welcome to the Mother Blanket Show about?" I said, "Mom, I'm just paying homage to a guy who plagiarized our show and they gave him $100 million. She said, "Okay, well, you can say it, but just don't say the bad word, son. Don't say the bad word." It's all fair, love, and war, making sure I always pay respect to my mom. So everybody say hi to your moms out there in this beautiful world. At the same time, as we look at what's going on in the world of sports, talked about Aubrey Huff not really appreciating wearing a mask for people that may benefit if he wore one. I think all of us can pull our head out of the sand. I also want to look at, there's a thing that's kind of sad to say, but it's true. We just talked about it again. Major League Baseball, it does not have to disclose what players are on the injured list, the IL, for testing positive for COVID-19 or for other issues. Sometimes athletes go through challenges and it's a HIPAA violation. You don't have to tell someone's name. There's players right now dealing with issues and they don't have to tell the whole public what they're going through. So I look at, you think about New York Yankees general manager Brian Cashman said during a conference call today that teams have not been given the clearance to announce which players end up on the injured list due to COVID-19. If a positive test should show medical recommendations or exposure to someone who has had the virus could put a lot of players out of action, but it's no one's business. There's a song back in the day, "It Ain't None of Your Business." I remember that. I think it's called Missing Persons sang that from back in the day. What are words for? I never forget that song. It was back in the 80s. But he believes that the information that he's been given, it will let people realize that you don't have to disclose, or you're not supposed to disclose. You're not able to disclose. That's what Cashman said. It would be speculating circumstances. So non-baseball related injuries do not have to be explained in detail under the terms of the collective bargaining agreement. But if someone, throws a shoulder out or pulls a groin, then they can tell that so the bettors can decide when they bet in Las Vegas which guys they want to bet on. Last week, Charlie Blackmon of the Colorado Rockies, he became the first Major League Baseball player known to have tested positive for COVID-19. According to reports, the All-Star outfielder is one of 3 Colorado Rockies players to have a positive test. Numerous other teams have said they have players who've also tested positive for COVID-19 without identifying any of them. Philadelphia Phillies announced 7 players, while the Detroit Tigers said that 1 player who was living in Florida but not working out at the team's spring training facilities in Lakeland, Florida, also tested positive. Seattle Mariners general manager Jerry Dipoto said a few players have tested positive, but declined to specify how many. Several Toronto Blue Jays players and staff members have also tested positive for COVID-19. Baltimore general manager Mike Elias said the Orioles have had no reported cases and that no one on his team has decided against playing in the shortened season. He's hoping for a smooth start for the season, scheduled to begin at Camden Yards. I mean, everybody has their own thoughts on how we go forward with COVID-19, hoping that players can stay safe and that they don't have any repercussions for people that they love. Parents, grandparents, all of that stuff matters. I just appreciate when it comes to keeping other people safe. Part of the people that say, "Well, I don't want to wear a mask because I'm fine." They wear seatbelts. Okay, they wear seatbelts, and they got to make sure they do the right thing. Colorado Rockies Ian Desmond opting out of the 2020 season. COVID-19. Aubrey Huff, when he says he doesn't want to wear a mask, a lot of players do it for those that they love. COVID-19 has made this baseball season one that has a big risk, but he has a pregnant wife and 4 young children who have lots of questions about what's going on in the world. and he says that home is where he needs to be right now. He wrote home for his wife, who's pregnant, and he has to be there to help. And he also wants to guide his young children. He wants to help his young boys. He's 3 boys. And talking to them about issues of COVID-19 and civil rights and life, to be their dad. Like I say hi to your mom, say hi to your fathers out there. And here's a man doing the best he can to take care of his family. He said on an Instagram post that he's been sharing more of his thoughts and experiences as a biracial man since George Floyd's death on May 25th in Minnesota. Floyd, an African-American man, passed away at the hands of a police officer when he was kneeling on his neck for more than, it was 8 minutes and 46 seconds, I believe. And, you know, he talked about growing up, and it's making me think about it too. When I was growing up, I played Little League Baseball, and I do remember some racial epithets being thrown around at times, but my mind, I'm not to sound like a knucklehead, but my mind is more where it didn't bother me as much because I was raised not to let it bother me. But I know a lot of times things come up, just like me thinking about my roommate that wouldn't take a shower and didn't want to clean up after himself, and it just makes you think about it. Those things happen to everybody. It's how we deal with it that's so important. So I appreciate him wanting to take care of his family. I wish him all the best. And even back to the NBA. Question: will the NBA Commissioner Adam Silver put players' health and families over money as COVID-19 cases rise in Florida? In the United States, over 127,000 fatalities, and that's in about 6 months, not quite 7 months. And I know Adam Silver talked about being able to go in and out of a bubble. Well, that's going to help him, maybe. But he also could take a virus if it's inside and outside of the bubble. I mean, who knows? You can only clean so many things. You can only wash your hands so much. With COVID-19 cases on the rise in the United States, some teams recently closing their facilities due to positive cases. NBA Commissioner Adam Silver remains pretty confident about the NBA's plan to safely resume play, but admits that a spread in the NBA community could bring the league to a halt. Now think about this too. Adam Silver has a family. When he goes home, is he going to put his family at risk after all the traveling? I told you, I just had a friend that she tests positive for COVID-19, her husband, her daughter, and a friend of her daughter also. But I want to look at the other side of the coin too. I think it was in Dakota, South Dakota, or North Dakota. There's I think there was a governor that said for a Trump rally they're not going to require people to wear a mask. It's a person's choice. As we know, people may get infected, but POTUS doesn't care. He's telling us that. It's also true that he was briefed on by at the White House that there was some talk that Russia was paying for the assassination of some U.S. troops, United States troops. But he doesn't dare challenge Putin. Who knows what Putin has on POTUS? We know he has some banking deals with Russia. He was trying to build a Trump Tower in Russia. So we know there's some money things going on. Maybe we'll see it when he opens his tax returns, but he doesn't plan to do that either. But that's a shame. We talk about, I will not salute anybody that doesn't take a stand when the national anthem is being played for our troops. And here he is being briefed that Russia and Putin are paying a bounty on United States troops, and POTUS says nothing about it. And you got people that want to vote for him anyway. Hopefully you're not with family in the military. Talk about treason. What a joke. At the same time, when you look at back in the NBA, Adam Silver's not going to be affected the way some of these athletes will. Or maybe he will, but he can come and go. They're telling athletes stay there for the duration of the season, that they're going to have this abbreviated season that's going to go on in beautiful Orlando, Florida, one of the spiking capitals in the United States. And speaking of Florida, I know everybody has their own thoughts about things, but I want to touch on this because it's important to me. And I grew up in a house of faith, so it doesn't matter that I'm no holier than anybody. I have my own problems in life. But Rome, Italy, Pope Francis tells American bishops, just like Big C Sports has been doing for a long time, do not turn a blind eye to systemic racism. Pope Francis also supports Black Lives Matter. Isn't that something? when oftentimes guys like Aubrey Huff or some other people, from coaches to people in our society, they're tired of hearing about it. They couldn't care less. President Trump, they don't care. But Pope Francis calls for United States bishops to offer prayers amid George Floyd's murder. And it's amazing because the church has so many ways to help people heal. On the same day that Pope Francis prayed for George Floyd and offered support to the United States, he called the president of the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops, Archbishop Jose Gomez, as well as a Texas bishop who was recently photographed kneeling and holding a sign reading Black Lives Matter. This is Pope Francis. He's speaking to the whole world, but he's also saying he's speaking to the Catholics. No matter what color you are, most of them have to be Caucasian in the United States. According to a press release from the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops, Pope Francis and Archbishop Gomez of Los Angeles spoke. It was earlier this month that they were talking about how to make things better for everybody. And they believe in the Black Lives Matter. Pope Francis expressed his gratitude to the bishops for their tone, the church's response to the demonstrations across the country, and their statements and actions since the death of George Floyd, and assured the bishops of its continued prayers and closeness in the days and weeks ahead. And I appreciate that, because that comes from Pope Francis. He said that racism is antithetical to human life, and he quoted, think about it, Archbishop Gomez's statement, which condemned violence that has followed some protests also. When you think about the people down at NASCAR that were flying the Confederate flag over a NASCAR event, Bubba Wallace had the noose in his garage. The only full-time driver that's African-American in NASCAR. A lot of the good people of NASCAR stood up for Bubba Wallace, and thank God for that. I've always said it's a matter of the heart, not what color somebody is, even though there are times when people say nothing because they want to benefit from the racial prejudice and the racial bias that they benefit from. But I also believe, as we look at the church, where there's a pope or a bishop, and they stand on the side of justice, it's important. If you think about what happened with Black Lives Matter and just trying to breathe, the Pope had prayed for silence for about 8 minutes, the time that Mr. Floyd spent under the knee of an officer before coming unconscious and passing away. When we have popes and we have bishops all over this country that are trying to shout down racism and bigotry, and some people get tired of hearing it because they know they have a privilege, they have a bias. But their saying was that, dear brothers and sisters in the United States, I have witnessed with great concern the disturbing social and unrest that's happened in the United States in the past days. And the Pope said during his general audience, my friends, we cannot tolerate or turn a blind eye. Big C always talks about that. Don't turn a blind eye from any form of racism and exclusion in any form, and yet claim to defend the sacredness of every human life. At the same time, we have to recognize the violence of recent behaviors that have happened in society, and we have to find a solution for it. I just think that what Pope said is so powerful. We cannot tolerate or turn a blind eye to racism and exclusion in any form. At the same time, we have to recognize that violence is self-destructive and self-defeating. Nothing is gained by violence, and so much is lost. Let us pray for reconciliation and in peace. Who wouldn't want to pass that message? If you're the kind of parent that wants to give a swastika, or you want to fly the Confederate flag, and you have the Pope saying, let's pray for reconciliation and peace, as a person of color, that makes my heart happy. That is not, as sometimes as a person of color, you feel that only black people care about racism. That so many times our white brethren say nothing about it, other than, hey, I believe in everybody, being nice and free, and everybody should be treated equal. And I have a black friend. That I've heard some of that so many times growing up, but I'm really seeing on another level where people all over the world are really reacting to this, just like we do with sexism and trying to deal with that too, keeping women safe. So I really do appreciate Pope Francis. At the same time, you have a mayor in a town in Alabama, and the mayor resigned after a post on the Crimson Tide's Black Lives Matter video, the same Black Lives Matter that Pope Francis supports. It's called Carbon Hill, Alabama. A controversial mayor, he's resigned after posting disparaging comments about the University of Alabama football team, voicing his support for the Black Lives Matter movement. Isn't that something? The man resigned after posting some derogatory statements. He's a mayor of a city. Voter obstruction is big in Alabama. They even have a museum down there that I don't know how you say it, honors, but paid homage to many people who were lynched, lost their lives. And I know people don't care about Black Lives Matter, but could you imagine if black men were lynching white people in this country? It's amazing people only want justice instead of revenge. Imagine if black Americans were lynching white people and terrorizing communities just for wanting to vote. When you think about it, just imagine that. When you go to get some water next time, make sure you drink out of the white water fountain, because they won't let you drink out of the other water fountains like everybody else, or go to the restroom or get a hotel. This is going on for such a long time. It's exhausting, but there are times when people like Governor Wallace said, segregation now, segregation forever, and people still voted for him in 68. I'm glad he was defeated. He had his vice president choice was talking about nuclear weapons and it's okay to use them. It took the white people fearing that nuclear weapons were going to be used again to have them not vote for Governor Wallace because of what his vice president choice was saying. But a Facebook post from Saturday, he's willing to sell his photos of the Alabama football team and head coach Nick Saban because of their sorry political views. He said the Tide is done in his opinion. You think Alabama really wants that guy's money? I mean, he's just a sorry person. Pope Francis just talked about the hatred that's happened in our great country that he wants to see done with. Reconciliation. And that's what Pope Francis is asking for, as a lot of other people are asking for that too. So I know everybody has their own thoughts about Black Lives Matter. There's even some people that have a problem when some African American solution is for the NBA bubble, if they have it in Orlando, to put Black Lives Matter on the 3 different courts that they're going to use down in Orlando, Florida, just for people to pay attention to what's going on and maybe have a solution for it. And there's some pushback on that. Some people don't want to hear it. A lot of good people do want to hear it. Pope Francis is one of those good people. It's a pretty good thing when no matter what you do, that you have Pope Francis on your side, as well as other people who have a decent heart. So Alabama football, you don't need people like that. But that guy was a mayor, not some good old boy, but a mayor in a small town in Alabama. And people wonder about voter obstruction. As I always say, I want to share my thoughts on what is the solution for the best advice to succeed when it comes to Black Lives Matter. Just Google United States Representative Sheila Jackson Lee. She proposed a Marshall Plan called H.R. 40 for Black Americans. America knows that it works because Harry Truman issued the Marshall Plan that rebuilt Germany and Western Europe after World War II. And it worked. Known as the European Recovery Program, was the United States program providing aid to Western Europe following devastation of World War II. It was enacted in 1948 and provided up $15 billion and more in today's time to help finance rebuilding the efforts on the continent. The brainchild was United States Secretary of State George C. Marshall, for whom it was named. It was crafted as a 4-year plan to reconstruct cities, industries, and infrastructure heavily damaged during the war, and to remove trade barriers between European neighbors, as well as foster commerce between those countries and the United States. And that same President Harry Truman, the GI Bill, he denied it to African Americans to help them get houses and money for school and businesses. Told them no. Thanks for helping with the war, but he told them no. Now, he integrated the military also right around that same time So he was able to use black Americans to go lose their lives, but not to get house and education. And people wonder why Black Lives Matter. It's always mattered. You know, something else that matters too, and I know it might be a touching topic to touch on, but I'm going to touch on it anyway, because I think it's important, especially when we deal with women in the Me Too movement. And I've always thought that women sometimes are pushed to the side and not given the same respect that men. NFL football news. Judges question the search warrants in the New England Patriots owner Robert Kraft alleged prostitution charges. That case down in Florida, why every man and woman should follow the case. Whether it's sex, lies, money, videotapes, and POTUS, we know that he did the $135,000 check to, I think it was Stormy Daniels, for what Robert Kraft is accused of doing. They're both accused of doing the same thing. One is under prosecution for it, and the other, I guess, it's kind of went away. Like he said, the COVID-19, the virus, it just went away. In Florida, men and women got to pay attention to this. Appellate judges on Tuesday questioned the legality of search warrants that led to police secretly video recording the NFL's, I guess, the best owner so far, as far as wins, New England Patriots owner Robert Kraft, and others that were paying for massage parlor and intercourse, pressing a prosecutor on his contention that the warrants were legally valid. They're trying to say that the warrants were not valid. This is so important, people. The Deputy Solicitor General, Jeffrey D'Souza, found himself repeatedly queried by the three-judge panel as he tried to persuade them that the warrants and the searches meet all constitutional protections and they should overturn the lower court ruling that barred the recordings used at trial. Misdemeanor charges against Mr. Kraft, 79 years old, and other customers would have to be dropped if those rulings stand, although felony charges against the spa owners might proceed as there are other evidence against them, like the trafficking. Now, for people who say whatever Bob Kraft did or did not do, allegedly, when you have videotaping of American citizens by law enforcement, they did that, the Hoover Commission did that. They were videotaping Dr. King, Malcolm X, they were videotaping everybody. They were doing that to have their own surveillance. But imagine people that go into a hotel when you go out of town and travel, or some people go in a hotel because they met somebody on a dating website and they end up going back to a hotel. Well, they're arguing that the others that were charged in a multi-county investigation of a massage parlor that included secret installation of video cameras in the spas, lobbies, and rooms, police say the recordings show Kraft and other men engaging in sexual acts with women and paying them for it, the same way POTUS paid Stormy Daniels or had somebody pay for him. Police say they recorded Kraft paying for sexual activity at the massage parlor, and he's pleaded not guilty. The thing I'm asking people to keep in mind, and I'm not a lawyer, but if this goes through and they throw out the case that he was being secretly recorded, then I believe, it's just my opinion, we're coming closer to having other men having those cases tossed out. Because I think it was Elliot Spitzer, when he was a prosecutor in New York, he was going after women. He was going after Johns and the women. We know it's unfair how women tend to get more legally in trouble than men do when it comes to the same behavior. Women get to punish more. When you talk about sports and sexuality and the oldest profession in the world, it still discriminates against women. From Madison Avenue to Las Vegas to the courtrooms, women pay the biggest price, and that's what we had the Me Too movement, how women are tired of that. I mean, it's so important that people have their rights to privacy. I've always thought if you legalize that profession, you could at least get women help, because that's one of the worst professions. I don't know why they call it a profession. It's legal in some states, in some counties. I think there's, in Nevada, there's like 20 brothels. We know about Las Vegas and also the Reno area, but there's supposedly 20 brothels in all of Nevada. It's legal in Amsterdam and other parts of the world. I think if the Me Too movement really focused on how to keep women safe, it's something that schools have used to recruit athletes. I remember when I was recruited to college, they had this good-looking young girl showing me and a couple of other football players around. I'm like, why are they having a good-looking woman showing us around? Shouldn't it be another football player? But they used a woman, and she was like, anything you want? Is there anything I can do for you guys? Is there anything you want? And she was showing us around. Now, what's a young boy going to say when a good-looking girl in a miniskirt says, is there anything you want? I mean, I'm just being real. And they do whatever they got to do to get people to sign on the dotted line. But I would hope that if they look at anything, as people argue about legalizing that business, it goes into decriminalizing the women who oftentimes will do that just so they don't starve to death. Or if you're in Las Vegas and you go to those, whatever they have, a lot of men go to Las Vegas to have that entertainment, the adult entertainment, whether it's a stripper's joint, or whatever, the brothel that they go to that's legalized. Those women, as far as I know, they can at least get their health checkups. They're not going to be beaten up. They're not going to be murdered. They're not going to be abused. They're not walking out on the street at midnight trying to find some guy driving around town looking for whatever he's looking for, taking whatever he finds back home. They say everything that happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. No, it doesn't stay in Vegas. Big C. A lot of guys have told me what they found in Vegas did not stay in mother blanking Vegas, Big C. It just did not stay there. It's all fair level war. I know people that went to Vegas or conventions, and they said there were so many people that they're having that, what do they call, I forgot the name of it. There was a movie made about it. Hall pass. They were having a hall pass where they got away from their spouse and they did whatever they wanted to do. And they go back home and they say, well, honey, I kept calling. You didn't answer the phone. Oh, I couldn't find my cell phone. I left it in the room. Okay, whatever works. Men and women do what they want to do with Big C. It's all fair, love, and war. But whatever happens with that Bob Kraft case is going to affect a lot of people. I would hope that if they focused on legalizing, it would hurt the pimps that distort the lives and destroy women's lives. Just like women that choose that industry, whether they choose to be a stripper or whatever, they're less likely to be harmed or murdered. I just did a report last week that in the United States in 2019, over 300,000 women were missing. We don't know if they're being trafficked in other countries or what it is. But when you go to a sporting event, whether it's Dallas Cowboys or the LA Lakers or the former Oakland Raiders or the 49ers, anywhere, most of the women are in such scantily clad outfits, it's there to entice men. And people know that. And I believe adults do what they want to do. Nothing wrong with that. But we also know there's another side to that business where women are taken against their own will and forced into prostitution. If you had a way you could do it legally, like they've done the marijuana, then maybe men who want to entertain that business but go to a brothel where at least it's more sanitary and they're not putting women in harm's way. That's just my opinion. I know people that complain, I can't believe that women are doing that kind of business. Well, there are women who will lay down for free, but they complain about women who do it to feed their children. I've known women that have done that, or at least said they did it, and they put themselves through college or raised a family. But when men pay for it, men tend to get off, women tend to do jail time. Doesn't make any sense. And I know that we talk about COVID-19 and sports and everything else, but the exploitation of women, like I mentioned, sports, sex, the oldest profession in the world, it still discriminates against women from Madison Avenue to Las Vegas, to the courtrooms, to the football fields, the basketball fields. It happens. And then the Me Too movement says nothing for the most part. There's a thing that happened in Las Vegas that causes a probe into betting exploits and the fairness in betting. If you're out there betting in Las Vegas, that's your business. You're going to lose money most likely. It's all fair and love and war. There's a documentary coming on with Colin Kaepernick. Netflix has to offer a story on Colin Kaepernick from Pittman High School in Turlock, California. He was an all-state baseball player too in high school at Pittman High School in Turlock, California. All-American baseball player in high school. He went on to the University of Nevada in Reno and became an All-American football player as well. He was drafted by the San Francisco 49ers, helped them win the NFC West, and took the 49ers to the Super Bowl down in New Orleans. and now he's been ostracized for taking a knee because he heard the whole version of the national anthem, Big C's Francis Scott Key original unedited version, and he said, "What in the world am I kneeing to?" And so he understood that, and also all the other issues that have happened in society that Pope Francis talked about. We need black lives to matter, just like white lives have always mattered in this country. But the Netflix is being produced by award-winning Ava DuVernay, who also produced 13th. It's gripping from what I'm hearing. I don't know who's already seen it, but I'm sure it's just a way to put on tape what a lot of people have already seen. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts, and I really appreciate the way things are going with Big C Sports. Final stories. The state of Arizona pauses on plans for athletes returning to campus due to COVID-19 as cases are spiking in Arizona. Earlier this year, POTUS said the heat will kill it. Well, it's about 95 to 97 degrees in Tempe, Arizona. And so that hasn't really killed the virus either. I know everybody has their own opinion about how to make life better in the United States of America. It's going to happen by talking about it. Nothing happens without us talking about it. And I love talking about it. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our prosperity, do ordain and establish this Constitution of the United States of America. And I hope that we can all keep focusing on that, because we all deserve the opportunity to form a more perfect union. Big C, back in the day, there's a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young man, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe? And I know you would always say, let's make sure we keep everyone healthy and safe, and no matter what you're going through, just keep doing the best you can to stay educated. I encourage everybody to start wearing a mask, especially when you're in public. The CDC says the same thing. We all got to do that to take care of the people that we love. Comprende? Comprende. Every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide, follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. As we always tell you, that's never, ever an excuse for racism or domestic violence. If you know any man, woman, or child going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.